Hello everyone. In the meditation series under Formula 44 Holistic Wellness Program, we talk about nuggets of wisdom from Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, which is a divine document there in the universe since eternity. This is one fact we should understand about the Holy Scriptures. It is eternal. In Bhagavad Gita, Shree Krishna speaks about it in chapter 4. He starts the chapter with the verse, Imam te vivasvate prokta vanaham abhyayam Vivaswan manave praha manur ikchvake abravita. O Arjun, I have spoken this Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, millions and millions of years ago, and I am repeating it now because during the course of time, the wisdom is lost, the knowledge is lost, and it has to be revived again. So when he says millions of years back to sun god, that doesn't mean that was a starting point. The starting point is eternity. The Lord, the God is eternal, our soul is eternal, so we are talking about all eternal laws. So the words of Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, are applicable in all times. Possibly the Lord adds some words or some references to make it appropriate for the time when the knowledge is revived. So this is the starting point, but today we are covering chapter 2. We will do the summary because we are into the second season of Bhagavad Gita reading, the Song of God, which has 18 chapters. We have completed chapter 1, which is Arjun Vishad Yog, the lamentation by Arjun about consequences of the war, and chapter 2, which is Sānkhya Yog, the analytical study of the soul, body, mind mechanism. So today let us do the summary of chapter 2 extempore, and this may become the reference for us whenever we wish to learn deeper into the subject of Sānkhya Yog in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 begins with a verse by Sanjay. Sanjay says, Tam tatha kripya vishtam ashrupurna kulekchanam visidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. He says, Arjun was in a very miserable condition. He has cast aside his bow and arrow. Visrijyam shasharam chapam shok samvigna manasa. That was the last verse in chapter 1, 143. He spoke about the problems and the aftermath of the battle. Men will be killed, women will not have protection, children will be shelterless, society will degenerate, such a calamity. So that's where chapter 1 ended, and that is what Sanjay is saying, that Shree Krishna spoke these words with a smile on his face while Arjun is in such a miserable countenance. What does Sri Krishna say? He starts chastising Arjun. Kutastva kashmalmidam visme samupasthitam anaryam justama swargayam akirtim karama Arjuna Klaibyam ma asmagamaha partha naitatvaya upapadyate chudram hridaya darbalyam tyaktvo tishtha parantapa. Oh Arjun, get up. You are not behaving like the warrior, the person who is there with a mission, with a purpose. You are showing shades of cowardice. You are showing so much of weakness. Where is the gentlemanly qualities which you should display? So the first few words are about chastisement, but Arjun does not give up. He continues to put his point. He says, Gurun hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhakshmapiha loke hatvart kamansta guru nihaiva bunjiye bhogana rudir pradigdan. You want me to smear my hands with the blood of my guru, of my grandfather, of my mentors, of my cousins? What kind of kingdom am I going to acquire, and am I going to be happy to have inherited such a kingdom? It is better to beg rather than to indulge in this war. Shree Krishna listens, and then Bhagavad Gita teaching begins when he says, Ashocyan anvashocastvam pragyavadansya bhasase gatasuna gatasunsya nanu shochanti panditaha na tvevaham jatu nasam na tvam neme janadipaha. He continues with the first set of preaching. What are you talking about? Killing, death. No one dies. You are not the body, you are the soul. And the soul is immortal. The soul is eternal. He continues to describe the soul and convince Arjun that everything is temporary in the material world. This body is utterly temporary. We did not want the war, but the war has become inevitable. So now we have to change the thinking. And the speech on the soul continues. Nainam chindanti sastrani, nainam dati pavaka. Achedyo, adahyo, akaledyo, ashosya evacha, niyata, sarvagata, asthanur, achaloyam, sanatanaha. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन नायम भूत्वा भवितावान भूय वाशांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि. Amazing description of the soul. It is immutable, it is eternal, it cannot be cleaved by the weapon, it cannot be burned by the fire, it cannot be dried by the wind, it cannot be wet by the water. Ashcharyavat kaschid. He says some people find the soul so amazing that they describe it as amazing. They speak about it as amazing. In so many ways, Sri Krishna has spoken about the beauty of soul, that it is eternal, and because we are not the body, we are the soul, so we are also eternal. And then very beautifully he says, even if you consider that the soul dies when the body is dead, so don't you know that whoever is born will have to die, and whoever is dying will be taking a rebirth according to the law. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityur. Dhruvam, janma mritasya cha tasmad apariharye arthe na tvam shochitum arhasi. Whoever is born has to die. This is very interesting because in the Vedic knowledge we know that the soul transmigrates and it takes up a new body. But does Buddhism think in the same manner? No. Whatever little I know about Buddhism, they believe in soul, but they say there is a renewed animation every time the body is destroyed, the body is dead. In Jainism, they say the soul is as big as the body. So that means it will keep changing as the body changes. Charvak philosophy, who knows what happens when the body is burnt? Yavat jivet sukham jivet rinam kritva ghritam pivet bhashmi bhutasya dehasya punara gamanam kutah. जब तक जियो सुख से जियो कर्जा लेकर घी पियो. Who has seen what happens when the body is burnt? So Krishna is telling the same for those people who don't believe that the soul transmigrates and it is never lost. It is eternal. The next segment in the chapter 2 talks about the duty, the swadharma. What is swadharma? All of us are born with some natural ability, natural instinct, natural tendencies that determines our inclination to work, what type of work suits us. Somebody is good to be a warrior, somebody is good to be a Brahmin, somebody is good to be a menial worker, somebody is good to be a merchant. These 4 classes. And even in those classes, we can say somebody is by nature a sports person. So to expect that the sports person will excel in quantum physics is not good. So we should know our swadharma and we should be diligent in pursuing the duties. So here Arjun is a warrior. His duty is to fight the battle. So Sri Krishna starts talking about he shouldn't run away from the battle. And what are you losing? You have got laddu in both hands. If you lose, you will die as a martyr and you will be glorified. You will go to the heavenly planets because you fought as a warrior, as a Kshatriya. And if you win, you will enjoy the kingdom. So he also talks about this aspect. And he talks about the philosophy so far as Sānkhya Yog. There is the subtle body, the gross body and the causal body. Gross body made up of 5 elements: earth, water, air, space, fire. Subtle body made up of 18 elements: man, buddhi, ahankar, mind, ego, intelligence. 5 pran, 5 life air, 5 karmendriya, working senses, 5 jnanendriya, knowledge senses. These 18 elements constitute the subtle body, and causal body, the karan sharir, which has the stock of past karma, the sanchit karma. So when a person dies, his gross body is burnt, cremated, buried, consigned to the water. But the subtle body, along with the soul and the causal body, moves on, transmigrates. So that part is described now, and Sri Krishna then starts to talk about a new concept which he calls Buddhi Yoga, which later we will know as Karma Yoga. Now he says there is divinity, there is divine rule. So If you work without getting your mind attached to the outcome, you will not incur the reaction. Your work will be considered like a sacrifice, like a yajna, because you have put in your heart and soul in focusing on the duty and not been influenced by the outcome. So this is called Buddhi Yoga. Shree Krishna starts talking about it. He talks about the Vedas. Don't necessarily go by the Karma Kand, the ritualistic descriptions in the Vedas. Yam imam pushpitam vacham. He talks about udapane sarvat lut odapake. He talks about look for the essence in the Vedas. You need to quench your thirst. A well is enough. What is the need of the ocean? So the essence is always important. Otherwise, you will find lots of flowery words in the Vedas, but that is not meant for the salvation, the liberation, the peace and the bliss. So don't go by those flowery words. Traigunya Vishya Veda Nais Traigunya Bhavarjuna. Go above the three gunas, the sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. Look for what is the real, not the temporary actions and results. That having been said, Sri Krishna utters this atomic verse 247. He says कर्मण्यवाधिका रस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भु माते संगो अस्त्व कर्मणि. You have the right to do the work, but you don't have control over the results. But do your duty diligently and don't be inactive. These are the elements in this shlok which is celebrated in the entire world as a wonderful concept of doing work. In my projects also, I would like to implement, and not only the project, in all aspects of life. And then the explanation of Buddhi Yoga continues, and the chapter moves into the mechanism, how the mind works. Amazing verses are encountered. Dhyayato vishyapunsaha sangateshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodho bijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti vibrama smriti bhranshad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. What happens is the mind decides, okay, this is what I should do, this is what will give me happiness, and then this contemplation makes the mind get attached. So first the contemplation, then the attachment. Now the efforts and the results. Either the desire which is made from this contemplation and attachment is fulfilled or not fulfilled. If it is fulfilled, do we become blissful forever? No. It leads to greed. And if it fails, if it is not fulfilled, we become negative, we become angry, we become frustrated. And that Sri Krishna says is a precursor to the ruination of the soul. Very much celebrated, these verses. And then he starts providing the metaphors and the similes and the examples how we should control our mind. He talks about the tortoise. Yada sanharte chayam kurmo anganiva sarvashah. The tortoise contracts its limbs when it encounters the danger. Similarly, the yogi who wants to follow Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga has to be like a tortoise, not pander to the chattering of the mind. The mind is saying this or that, and you let it wander aimlessly. No, you have the intellect and you apply the intellect and bring the mind back to the goal, which is Buddhi Yoga, which is focus on your duty and not to look for results. That does not mean we are not diligent. So the best rule for Karma Yoga is that while we are seeking the goal, while we are working, while we are applying our best efforts, our thinking is that the outcome is dependent on my efforts. So we put in our best foot forward. But when the results are out, or when it comes to hearing about the results, we are equipoised. Whatever is the outcome, we don't get overly excited or frustrated or negative. We did our best, but under the circumstances, this is what has happened. Let me take it up with equipoise. So many such verses are there about the lamp which remains steady in a windless condition, like the ocean which is receiving thousands of rivers but is remaining steady, still. Apuryamanam achla pratishtham samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yah pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. The river receives thousands and thousands of, the ocean receives thousands and thousands of rivers but remains still. Similarly, thousands and thousands of desires and distractions are entering the mind of the yogi, a person who is seeking to implement Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga. So the best recourse is to remain unaffected by these desires. Only that person will attain his goal. And finally, the chapter mentions a shlok which Swami Mukundanand ji in his speech in UN termed as the peace formula. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan pumans charte nispriyah nirmamo nirhankarah sashantim adhigacchati. How does one become peaceful? When one is equipoised, when one has removed all these attachments, all these desires which are not in our control, because everything in the material world is temporary and that has to be accepted. The soul is seeking God, that reality has to be realized. That is verse number 71. And then chapter 2 ends with the verdict that nainam prapya vimuhyati. Who will attain the complete bliss and peace? The one who has learned to apply the Buddhi Yoga, the Karma Yoga. So, this is the essence of chapter 2, Sānkhya Yog, analytical study of the soul, the mind, the body. Hope repeated listening of this summary will help us to learn the essence of the knowledge. Let us meet up again. Take care.